gonna be hard not to look there.
Yeah, I'll just punch you a few times.
Yeah.
They can't see me punch you with the screen.
10
up.
seconds.
You didn't fix it?
4, 3, 2.
We're back, folks. Freedom Forum on this, the third day of the 9th month already. Year of our Lord Jesus the Christ, 2014. Heavenly Father, we ask that you move amongst your people. We ask that you should give us the strength, the wisdom, and the courage to help our friends, our family, anyone who will listen. And give us the strength, the wisdom, and the courage also to do your will in all things. Protect us from our enemies. Confuse or convert them. In Jesus the Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
There's some rather interesting stuff going on, so we're going to jump into it. Got a bunch of meetings coming up the next 3 Thursdays. So mark Thursdays, the next 3 Thursdays on your calendar. The first one tomorrow night is our regular Freedom Forum LUM meeting at Elise's at 6:30 officially. We'll be there before that. And among other things, we're going to be discussing the contents of an article I sent out today on future wars. This article dovetails what we've already been discussing both on the show and at the meetings regarding the plans for a Y2K style meltdown, which are still on the books, by the way, and what did happen after Katrina and in the wake of the LA Rodney King riots. They all dovetail together, and we'll be discussing that tomorrow night. Then, Acadiana Patriots the following Thursday, and I'll let Jim let you know about that.
Still working on a couple of speakers to come. A couple of ladies out of Lake Charles are getting back to me tomorrow. But we're going to do, how would you say that, a commemorative thing for the 9/11 in Benghazi thing. We have a couple of videos, a couple of speakers, talk about that and spend about an hour on that, and then we'll do a little bit on the Common Core and whatever else we need to discuss at that point in time.
And then also, this Friday, getting them out of order, is a big meeting in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
Let them know about that one in case anybody wants to come. They let us know or come to the meeting tomorrow night. We can give you the details, but this is important.
Yeah, well, if they're going to go Friday, they need to leave early because they're checking the bridge in on the
Yeah.
Chafalaya Bridge. One lane will be closed down each way.
Yeah.
So I know we're leaving at 8:30, 9 o'clock.
This is a meeting to discuss with the state representatives and senators the balance of powers. They're going to get a jump on things and file a Balance of Powers Act as a legislative act this time around. So we're going to get over there and talk to them about that Friday. Anybody that wants to come along for that needs to let us know for details and location. Email me or come to the meeting tomorrow night. We'll have the info for you. And then on the 18th, the next Freedom Forum meeting, we're going to have a special guest who will be on the show the night before, on the 17th. Renee Powers from California. We've made the final arrangements, and she's got even more. It's been a while since I've talked to her, but there's even more information she's got about the border situation. And we've got a little bit on that tonight also coming up. A big alert has been issued today for Texas and probably for other places. We'll get into that in a minute. But she'll be on the show on the 17th, and then she'll be coming to our meeting on the 18th at Elise's to answer questions. And of course, the night of the 17th, we're going to move into the big studio in case there's folks that want to come hear her personally, ask questions, etc., have a discussion personally with her. I'm gonna ask, though, that you let me know ahead of time by email or phone or at the meeting tomorrow night so that we can plan on everything, because we can't get in there until after the previous show leaves, so we only have a short length of time to get set up. So you need to let me know so we don't have a lot of confusion that night of the 17th. If you'd like to come be the peanut gallery for that one, we will have a live audience, and it'll be quite interesting. So plan on it. And then, of course, the 18th at Elise's for our regular meeting from 6:30 until 9:30-ish. And it seems to me there's something else going on, but I can't think of, am I forgetting anything that you can think of?
I don't think so.
Other than all of the meetings you've been attending and a few that I've been to.
Oh, God.
Not nearly as important as yours, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So much for this. I don't need any more on that one. We'll come to breaking news. And so far, we only heard it one time so far. Early this afternoon, Fox News reported that Russian nuclear forces are conducting an exercise very shortly, within the next few days. And I had checked on the Fox website for any further information. There was none. There was no information at all
I Googled
as
it.
of then.
I Googled it.
Did that, nobody had anything yet? Okay.
No.
The problem with that is that the Soviets used to use training exercises
To cover
to
up.
divert prying eyes from things like their Czechoslovakian invasion in '68 and Afghan invasion in '79. So is this just muscle flexing on the part of Putin? Pray that that's all it is. I don't think it's going to be nuclear from the standpoint of an actual launch against somebody, but there may be some provocation, there may be some extreme provocation come out of them. They like to, they're playing games again, just like they did during the Cold War with their aircraft and their ships. They had some Bear bombers recently overflew the Pacific Northwest, and that was about a month ago, before things in Ukraine really heated up like they are now. So hopefully this nuclear exercise is just to show that they've got nukes, is why he's doing it, which, well, we know he's got nukes. Everybody knows he's got nukes.
That's a good one.
So,
I
Anyway.
like that article.
yeah, this is the important one here. Let me see if it will come up. Okay, now let's get into the nitty-gritty. I was just told about 2 hours ago, I'd been hearing some rumblings and contacting my friend in Texas who's directly connected with the State Guard and the Texas State Militia. And he gets all of the hot skinny from them. And they had been hearing rumblings beyond what had been on the internet. And sure enough, he called back this afternoon with further information. They confirmed that Texas is on full alert right now for trouble with ISIS primarily. And they even contacted him about doing some scenario-based training in a hurry on specific detailed scenarios about what to expect from certain people that have been allowed to flood across the border. This is why, for example, his contacts at Camp Pendleton Marine Base in California are very upset because they've got a bunch of them over there, and they're very concerned. So I'm sure that and I've heard that Fort Polk is also on alert. So we're going to have to keep watching that situation, folks. Texas is only across the river. As I've told you before, there's some people in this state that have the attitude that the Texans are going to protect us from all of this crap going on down there. No, no, it's already here. They're already,
Anything on Wednesdays is
there were a bunch of those illegals were at Fort Polk up until just recently when they brought in a big bunch of troops for some special training of some sort that we never could find out any details about.
2,500.
And so let's see what's happening here.
Go ahead, caller.
Good evening, Jim, Tom. How are
Ray.
you guys tonight?
We're doing good.
What you got?
Hey, listen, I'd like to give both of you and your audience an opportunity, an invitation, if you will, to come to Constitution 101 class next Tuesday night.
That's
That
The
was
the
reason
one
I'm
thing.
calling tonight
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we won't be back on the air again until after the class. But it's next Tuesday night at 6
Yeah.
o'clock at the Thomas Park Recreation Center. We're going to cover some very interesting subjects and answer some interesting questions. I've got a question now that I'd like to give you an example. Does it not defy common sense knowing that it demands more education, training, experience, and even a license to cut somebody's toenails or to fix a commode or fix a light switch than it does to be an elected official and make our laws, our rules, and our regulations?
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good question, right?
yep.
Yes, it does. It just doesn't make common sense. But anyhow,
Does
next
to them.
Tuesday night we will be covering the basic parts of the Constitution. This is important. Our own city mayor said on radio last week that even he nor the city council would be able to answer those 10 very basic, simple questions that we put on the information that
It's
he gave
pretty
to us.
awesome, huh, Ray?
Well, I guess he needs to study up on it then, huh?
Hey, Ray.
Well, I wish he would. Yes.
Send me an email with the address for Thomas Parks and that, and I'll put it out through my email system on the Patriots.
Yeah, me too.
I appreciate it. One of the things
know
we're
we're
going to
planning.
cover is so very basic, and many people don't have any idea when you ask them, what exactly is the Constitution? What is its purpose? And why do you feel it's so complex when really and truly it's not?
No, it's very
By the
simple.
way, we're going to have a guest next Tuesday night. We're going to have one of the police officers. He's going to discuss the open carry law so that it will eliminate any possibility of misunderstanding. This was a suggestion by the chief of police. We were not even intending on having any classes until the chief of police said, look, I like the idea of having elected officials to have to answer basic questions to qualify for running for office, but why don't you have a class on this so everybody in Lafayette can come and get reintroduced to the Constitution? That's what we're trying to do, basically.
Well, the
is to
unfortunate,
reintroduce the population to
Yeah.
the Constitution.
the unfortunate part is that most of the population now, especially those under about 45, have never been introduced to it to begin with.
That's
Exactly.
exactly
So
right.
it's gonna be it's
And
gonna
the
be
big
new
problem,
for them.
you remember I ran for state representative about 20 years ago,
Yeah,
and every night we'd be out on the circuit, and they would ask the standard question, what do you think is the number one problem facing Louisiana? Well, the other guys would say the same old drumbeat, drugs, crime, education. When it was my turn, Tom, I would say, do you really want to know what the number one problem facing Louisiana is? It's the same number one problem facing the entire nation, the ignorance and the apathy of the average man and woman.
yep,
So this is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We're not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but if you want to get reintroduced to the Constitution, then I suggest you tell your friends to come out to Thomas Park Recreation Center next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. And by the way, we're going to be giving everybody one of the free programs, the Citizens Rule Book. We've made special arrangements to get some of them, so we're going to be giving those away. And as you know, Tom, it's loaded with information.
Yeah.
It really is,
Yeah.
as you very well know.
yep. All right, Ray,
So,
appreciate
I
you
appreciate
reminding
it
us.
very
All right,
much.
Mr. Ray.
All righty, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, we'll,
That was the one.
that was the one we both forgot. Yeah, sorry about that, Ray. But there's been so much happening even in the last couple of days. So, yeah, this is vital for everybody. And we're planning on attending that thing. In fact, I thought it was last night. and had to call somebody to make sure yesterday afternoon to see, is it, when is it, when is it? Oof, gosh. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right, back on the border situation. A group of folks
That
were
was-
videoed on a beach in San Diego. It specifically was Mission Beach.
I've been there.
Were videoed coming in on they're calling it a panga boat. What it basically is one of those hard inflatable boats, the same thing as a Zodiac. 7 a.m. on a Monday morning, they landed on this beach, all dressed the same in black fatigue-like suits, no weapons though. And they ran across from the beach, climbed a wall, headed into the city. And a homeowner's surveillance camera caught most of it, which is it's online. And they told NBC7 that they appeared to have someone waiting for them. Tracked them into an alley where they changed clothes and attempted to walk in the city and blend in. 7 of them were spotted via helicopter and apprehended. Now, one report I heard today after sending this out was that all of them had been apprehended according to one report. Now,
Who knows?
there was also supposed to be another one
There was another
at
one.
night that happened, same area.
They caught them right away.
So how many times was this done? Was this a dry run, or were they actually trying to land people to stay? Did they want to see what the response time was going to be for anybody that might come in? There's any number of possibilities for this thing, and we're just going to have to keep watching. In light of this other stuff, this Texas alert that's going on right now as we speak, that's serious, that Texas situation. And what's real interesting is, of course, the fact that all these illegals are scattered all over the country, mainly in military bases.
Mm-hmm.
What better place to put somebody that you want them to cause trouble? Put them in a military base.
Exactly.
Oh, but they were searched, were they? Did they search the baby's diapers? Who then, the 17-year-olds then pulled their pistols out of the baby's diapers?
We don't know.
Folks,
I have no clue.
keep your eyes and ears open. And of course, there was an alert went out last week that I sent an email out on for a local area, for here, dealing with a purge type situation.
What a
And that
movie.
was the same day that the schools were locked down. So there was something to that.
I mean, what a brilliant person to make a movie like that.
I mean, the movie
The
sucked.
movie
I
was-
started to watch it, and then I quit watching it. I knew what was going to happen. But and they made a sequel to it. The sequel is,
They made a sequel?
yeah,
Oh my God.
or a part 2 or what have you,
Whatever.
whatever it is. So anyway, let's see. Is that the one? Yeah. Okay. I need to.
I like the Barney Fife one.
Yeah. Oh no, that's the one I wanted. Shoot. The government is funding terrorists, bringing them into this country and funding them.
Oh, yeah. Catholic
If anybody
service.
wants that a copy of that article, let me know. I've got it. I just discovered it. It had all kind of good links, etc. about this. What happened was the U.S. government, its infinite wisdom, allowed a bunch of Somali refugees
That was a good story.
into the country, and as we know, the 2 Americans, so-called, they're both naturalized. They were both Somalis, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
From one of these communities that these Somalis were sent to, were killed fighting for ISIS last week.
Yep.
So, how many of them are sitting in this country now? There's a real concern about that. And I suspect this was done intentionally. This is a category, this is working out to be a Category 2 event, where the powers that be know that the enemy is here and will allow them to do their deed. Unlike 9/11, where I thought of that initially, I thought that was a level 2 event initially, 9/11/01. the World Trade Towers and the Pentagon, but it turned out with the evidence that came out later that they were both, the whole thing was staged by the powers that be. This one here looks like, well, we learned our lesson. We're gonna let real bad guys, I guess you could call them private terrorists, the non-governmental, we're gonna have to have a new designation for these guys at the UN, the NGTs, non-governmental terrorists. You got the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, we're gonna have to give ISIS the non-governmental terrorist designation, or these Somalis. But yeah, they had a Refugee Resettlement Watch, was the name of the program
That was a law.
for resettling these people. Hundreds of them were resettled, a bunch of them in Maine, in Minnesota, where else did they had several other places. Anyway, so watch for more of this kind of stuff, folks. This is potentially a real problem. If the government had not been complicit in this stuff initially, I mean, after the Desert Storm events, the first Iraq attack, they brought in tens of thousands of Iraqi soldiers, ex-Iraqi soldiers were brought into this country under the same type of program.
Wow.
I talked to a viewer at the time who was a ex-chemical warfare expert with the Army that was in Desert Storm, and then later on he got to attend chemical warfare classes with some of those guys. They actually took some of those guys and trained them in chemical warfare.
You have the story on the 11 missing Libyan airliners?
No, I don't have that one flagged, but yeah, that's another thing that has occurred. 11 Libyan airliners were reportedly seized by the rebels over there and have disappeared. And of course the speculation is with September 11th, a week and a day away,
Yeah.
that they may try and duplicate what the international banksters did that day. That situation could be very interesting. But again, we'll just have to wait and see there.
How did 11 airplanes just disappear?
Well, Libya is kind of a basket case.
Well,
They're
it's-
probably all still in Libya.
Well, they were at the pool party getting drunk, and
Yeah.
then they took the airplanes
Yeah.
from the embassy.
No, they wasn't. They were Libyan airliners, I
I know.
think. But
I was making a joke.
oh, you're making a joke. We can't make jokes. We don't want to.
No, we don't want to be funny about that, but I mean, we had our
But we can
compound
still laugh
taken
about
over,
it. I know.
taken over by the Libyans. Another
Yep.
good job.
Let's see.
They were having a pool party.
Might talk about this later. All right. I got to get this out, and then I'm going to let Jim talk a little bit. There was a letter to the editor in the Advocate yesterday from Barry Rafferty, petrochemical retired is all he's got here in Plaquemines. The reason Bollinger supports Landrieu tied to contract. And after reading this yesterday, I saw another one of the ads where this guy in a hard hat, kind of a guy that never shied away from boudin and beer. He was talking about how goody Landrieu was, and he was in a shipyard.
Yeah.
So it was probably connected to this. This chap here, Mr. Rafferty, says, I was one of the many voters who wondered why Boise Bollinger Shipyards, came out so early this year in support of Mary Landrieu in the Senate race. Now I know we may have a lot of ill-informed, used in place of the other words that I was going to use, and he's right, voters in Louisiana. Some of us may be a little smarter than Landrieu and Bollinger give us credit for. I hope a whole lot of them
A
are.
whole lot.
If you go back and check the Advocate on Thursday, July 24th, way back on page 9B, you may find the answer to his wondering. Seems that Bollinger Shipyard has been awarded a $255 million contract to build some fast response cutters for the Coast
my.
Guard.
Oh,
Landrieu is chairwoman of a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee. You do not have to be a Rhodes Scholar to figure it out. Why the Advocate buried the story on page 9B is another story in itself. Yeah, he's right.
we know what that reason was.
Oh, yeah, the Advocate, even though it's independent, they've been head over heels in love with Common Core, and had, up until just recently, they basically not run any anti-Common Core, anybody that had any common sense about Common Core that was writing into letters to the editor, including this guy here, they wouldn't publish any of them. Now, they've started it because of the tremendous groundswell. I'm sure it's because they got so many letters, like, you better publish these letters or else we're gonna drop the subscription. So, and again, this is a good move on your part if you see some outfit like this that is not towing the line, or not doing, I should say, not doing what you think they should be doing, or not fair and balanced, if you will, then let them know that you don't like it, and we'll act accordingly. Now, on that note, why don't we jump into that and then come back to sovereign duty?
I'm gonna,
What would you?
I went to a meeting Monday with leaders from around the state, formulating a plan off of what these mothers, and this was on Labor Day, we had 2 representatives and a state senator there. That's saying a lot.
Mhm.
And we got a lot accomplished. There's a lot of things that we're doing. We're doing a petition for businesses stating that they support local control and education, and mostly the small businesses, because the big businesses are too tied to other things.
Yeah, other interests. They're
Other
making them money,
interests.
maybe?
Yeah, well, that would probably be a good guess. What came out of there was formulating statewide teams to meet with their legislators and start educating the legislators. I had a meeting today with a local legislator here in Lafayette, and it went very well. Even though he was already on board against Common Core, when I shared and educated him on some facts, which we're gonna talk about those, he was amazed, and that. So that, what we're trying to do is build relationships with people that, legislators and businesses that will help us prove to people like Vitter that switched and flipped. And we have a letter that Vitter did say he was for Common Core less than a month ago.
Yeah.
And we know why Vitter switched and stated against that he's for Common Core. And it's like my discussion with the legislator today, it all comes down to money. And when I explained to him different people that he knows in the legislation and the research and the stuff that I had on these people, he was shocked. He couldn't. He says, we don't know all that stuff. I hear rumors. And I said, I can tell you that it's not rumors. And I said, if you want to see my research, I'll bring it back one day. And one of the things that I got into, and Tom and I were looking at this a little bit. This is the amazing.
We mentioned it last week about percentages, and how if you've got, before an event, you've got 1 leukemia patient, and after the event, like a nuclear bomb, you've got 2 leukemia patients in a year. Then you got 100% increase in the leukemia without talking about numbers. How many? It's only 1 more. Well,
Yeah.
that's not a valid number, okay? The percentage is worthless, but it gets even better with the biggest thing that they talk about with Common
We didn't
Core.
make this chart, by the way. This was done by the 2012 ACT National and
ACT.
State Scores, ACT
Yeah.
scores.
Yeah, now this is telling,
Oh,
because you
man.
always hear that Louisiana is so far down on test scores. Louisiana students are so far down on test scores. And I was not aware of how these ACT tests until seeing this. how these ACT test scores are used. Now, we had told you that from an international standpoint, the United States of America's school system was not as bad because supposedly, well, we know that that's not true anymore, because supposedly the U.S. students were 100% tested, whereas these other countries would only test
They'll
a few of
test-
their people.
they
The
only
better
test
ones,
the best.
the best would be tested, so that would skew the test results, obviously. Well, it turns out they're doing the same thing in the states, in individual states with the ACT that's used to claim that Louisiana is so far down the list when it comes to how bad our students are academically. And,
When you look at this chart, they, no, you're gonna,
no, go
when
ahead.
you look at this chart, they say we're like 47th. One of the things that blew away the legislator today was when I pointed out to him that the difference between number one in the country and Louisiana was only 4 points.
And actually, it's a little bit less than that, because we got the
about
numbers here.
3.8.
It's actually 20, Louisiana, 20.3,
And
and the highest one is Massachusetts.
24.1.
So it's
But
actually
let's give
3.8.
them a stat off of that.
Yeah, we're
The
gonna,
very first column says percentage of graduates tested.
yeah, that.
This is the key. This is how they fool the public. This is how John White and Romer and them guys use the statistics. Barry Irwin, you're watching Barry? Gotcha.
And see, they didn't even, what they didn't tell you is, they told you the percentages, the average composite score is what we're looking at here.
Yeah,
They told you that, and used that to come up with, we're 47th out of 50 states.
they didn't.
They didn't tell you they made you think that 100% of the students in all of the 50 states were tested. Well, guess what? There's only, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Six,
There's
7
none
or
over
8.
here. No, there's 2 over here.
So
No,
about
3. Okay,
7.
9 states out of 50 test 100% of their students.
Let's
Louisiana's
compare.
one of them.
Let's compare
9.
the number one state, okay, which is Massachusetts. Their average composite score is 24.1. They tested a whopping 23% of their graduates. Now let's go to the terrible state of Louisiana, whose average composite score was 20.3, which is 3.8 points difference than Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Good Lord, they tested 100% of their students
Now, these are graduates now.
These
They're
are
under
graduates.
the ACT test.
that took the
for
ACT test.
2012.
100%. So, you see, this is how they use numbers. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at those that did score 100%.
There's only two states
And I wanna see
lower
what
than
their-
ours. 3.
What their scores are.
They average pretty much what we do.
Yeah, they're close. They're real close,
They-
except
they-
Mississippi's the lowest with 18.7%, but they test
Tested
100%.
100%. And there is no apples to apples.
No.
And when I showed this to the legislator, his exact comment was, "Well, they don't tell you that stuff."
No.
And I'm like, you know, and that's when I made a comment to him. I said that most of the people that I know that are pro Common Core, they have no clue. They have no clue what the real deal is. And I talked to him about what control is. I have stuff in here on the economics and how it's affected by Common Core.
Yeah.
And, but what we're trying to get across here is, this is how they fool you. If I took this chart to the advertiser tomorrow morning, do you think they'd print it?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Now, you could spend big bucks to get a page or a half
Yeah,
a page with all
$4,000 or
this on there.
$5,000,
Yeah,
but we don't
they're not
have
gonna-
that.
This is a public service here, okay? Has anybody ever accused the Adverlier of being a public service
Oh,
institution.
they just keep changing
No, let me see-
people.
Let me see something a second.
Yeah,
For this, I wanna comment about some of these other numbers, just for giggles, okay? Maine is up at the top. Okay, we'd have to go through and see just where they are. They're probably about
number 2. I
tied
think.
for number 3 with New Jersey.
Yeah,
I'm gonna come back to New Jersey. They're both at 23.4%, and nobody else is, yeah, okay, they're number 3 at 23.4%, tied with New Jersey. Maine tested 9% of their students. And Maine ain't that big a state, so all of 12 students took the test that were used in these scores, all of 12 of them, okay?
I
New
mean,
Jersey's got a few more people. They tested 20%, and they still only got 23.4 percentile. Now,
New York, look at New York,
New York is
29%,
29%, okay?
23.
And they're at 23.3%. Oh, they're high. They're
Yeah.
high. Their number,
Do you understand,
fourth.
since 2012, this score fell in New York because of Common Core?
well, I don't doubt it.
70% failed.
I don't doubt it. But see, you've got to ask those questions. That's when I see a poll of some kind. I try and find the questions that they asked, how many people
Who did they ask?
answered, who they asked, yeah, how many in each category, who they asked. If I go to the north side of Lafayette and ask a question about which Republican would you vote for in the upcoming presidential election, who do you think they're gonna tell me? If I ask them, which of the upcoming candidates would you vote for, i.e. Hillary Clinton or one of the Republicans, how do you think they're gonna answer? If I ask the same question in the south side of Lafayette, what do you think the answer's gonna be? So, now I'm gonna decide. If I'm a Democrat, I'm gonna go to the north side of Lafayette and ask those questions. If I'm a Republican, I'm gonna come on the south side and ask those questions. Now, how many of you have gotten a telephone survey? I encourage you, when you get, and they're gonna start coming in, they're gonna start hitting hot and heavy
I
now.
never answered.
And I'm on a list apparently, because I get several of them. And I'll answer. And sometimes, I know it's somebody that doesn't like my answers, because the first answer often gets me, thank you, and they hang up. The first answer,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Things like, are you a Republican, Democrat, or independent? Well, I always tell them, independent. And often, I don't know whether they're a Republican or Democratic survey, but often, that's it. That's all they want to know. They don't care about who I might be inclined to support, etc.
And your
But-
checkbook.
There again, if you're a thinking individual, you need to think about this stuff and use it. Okay, use your brain power, because this stuff here, this is astonishing. Because this was the #1 reason for Common Core in this state. The
Because
number
we
one
are
thing,
so
we're
terrible.
so bad. Our students
So
test out
bad.
so bad.
See, we got an engineer sitting here that graduated from college. You
I got
graduated
a
from
master's
college.
in political science from
Joe got his
USL.
NASA.
What do you got? What's your degree?
Electrical engineering.
Electrical engineering from where?
NASA, USL.
USL, okay. So,
But we're all dumb. We're from Louisiana. We're dumb.
well, some of them think that. That's what we want to. We want to encourage. Not only are we dumb, but we chase alligators and water moccasins in our spare time and grab them with
Oh,
our
yeah.
teeth. So we
Yeah,
want them to continue to think that.
Here's another thing that this is a legislator now, and believe me, he's a very good guy. We had a great conversation, but this goes to show you how they don't, because it did not get out on the floor, these things don't show up, and that's exactly what he told me. He said, you get the bills on the floor, we'll get them passed, but you couldn't get them out of committee. I mean, horrendous. And one of the #1 things he agreed with me with, that I made the comment to him, is that they have totally ignored the parents.
Yeah, yeah.
And he agreed. He said, yes, they do ignore them. I said, well, This is where I went with that. I said to him, you know, the elections are coming up. He said, you know what? We're starting to get very aware of that. I said, there's 64 parishes in the state of Louisiana. Guess what? There are 64 parents groups in the state of Louisiana.
Mhm.
And he said, I got the picture. But
Yeah.
when I told him this statistic, I said the total cost, including technology, textbooks, professional development, and testing for the state of Louisiana will be $270 million. He went, 270 million? They don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
And you think that this, above all other considerations, aside from how high up or how low we are in the testing results, you think that the money consideration would have been pretty high up in priority to find out what the total amount for pushing Common Core. See, they've got a group. I met one of the guys through a friend of mine at a gun show in Baton Rouge. He lives in Baton Rouge. That a guy that was on this legislative support group, that all they do is look at a bill and tell the legislature how much money they're gonna make off of it or how much money it's gonna
Yeah.
cost.
I bet I know.
And
that.
obviously, they did not do this, the whole Common Core package like this has been done.
Here's the CCS loss per state. Okay, now, what they did is they took the $270 million, federal competitive awards. So the state of Louisiana is gonna get 47 million from the federal
That's
government.
the check that the general already got, isn't
No,
it?
that's not, that's a different thing.
Oh, that was different. Okay.
But that brings the total loss to the state to $222 million. Now, another thing, another conversation that I got into, it was just bam, bam, bam. They need to hear this stuff. We had this big discussion about the $23 million budget in the parish. Well, guess what? $13.3 million of that was because of the money that went to the charter schools. Now, have you seen anywhere in the discussions about that budget that number? No.
Oh, I'm sure it's
And
not
I'm
there.
telling you how I know that. The man that pushed and went around the board, the school board, and went to Baton Rouge and fought for the charter schools was crying because of the budget before all the discussion started. Cooper. And, you know, I mean, when I sit with, and I'm gonna do more of this after today, it just tells me that this is what I need to do. This is that I'm gonna hit every one of our representatives, do the same thing I did today, is give them the numbers, give them the facts. You wanna know something? You don't have to believe a word I say.
Yeah, again, it's
Go
just-
look it up.
look it up for yourself. It's there. With the internet, there's no excuse for ignorance. Well, that's what ignorance is ignoring the facts.
Yeah,
There's
we're
no
gonna-
excuse for stupidity. And it's all there. There's very little. I have found some stuff that was not on the internet though.
Yeah.
before. And I got a pretty deep imagination and appreciation for history but I have found some stuff that's not on the internet. But this kind of stuff is all there.
It's
The
there.
difficulty you've got is using the sources properly, and then a lot of people, they're actually in the schools now using Wikipedia for a source for information. The problem with Wikipedia, I rarely go to Wikipedia,
Oh, no.
particularly if it's anything sensitive like this. Don't go to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is controlled. If there's some topic that Wikipedia does not.
Snopes also
Yeah,
is
Snopes is
controlled.
controlled too.
That's not a reliable source.
But Snopes is basically just takes rumors and decides whether or not they want you to believe them.
Yeah,
but-
exactly.
Wikipedia is supposed to be, like the name implies, the encyclopedia of the internet. Well, it's not, because the people that post this stuff on Wikipedia, if they've got some topic or some little tidbit and there's stuff that when I have gone on there, it's been on esoteric stuff mostly, that, I wanted to find out the tonnage on a Japanese battleship, you know, that kind of stuff you can find on there. There's no controversy involved with that. But if I wanted to, if I found out that there was some ship, let's say a U.S. Navy vessel that was not on Wikipedia, a vessel from the 1930s, I could make it up. I could make up the name of a vessel and a lot of interesting sounding details about it and post it to Wikipedia. And unless somebody comes back and disputes it, they have to dispute it with some backup. They can't just say, oh, this is wrong. Unless it's something political, then they will eliminate it if it doesn't agree with their political views. So you can't use Wikipedia as a source, folks. Your children that are in school using it for research papers, etc. No. I was a researcher. I was renowned in school, both in undergraduate and graduate school, for my researching abilities. And let me, yeah, well, I'm limited now in just time and budget.
Couldn't pass that.
But yeah, I got too much. That's why the living room is full of stuff right now that's getting thrown out after I've finished going through it. But the bottom line is that there's other sources for this stuff, and go to those sources. Like ACT, information about the ACT, that's going to be on the ACT website.
Yeah, I got it today.
They're not gonna have an agenda yet for this kind of stuff. They're not gonna monkey with the figures yet. Not when it comes, they are a Common Core oriented outfit now. They've just been taken over by a Common Core related bunch.
Exactly.
So the ACT is gonna get in line with Common Core. And this kind of stuff, as soon as they realize that we're using it against Common Core, which anybody should be using this against Common Core, because that's one of their bedrocks.
It's just a matter of
It's
the
bizarre.
realization of what,
It's bizarre.
how they, I mean, they make us sound like, you're dumb,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, that's the way they treated, who was it you were telling us? Was it White was treating the mothers that way? What did he call it? They had a name they started calling them.
That's
The soccer moms.
yeah, just, what's his name, that's the head of the education department.
Yeah, see, they're gonna, the other side, it's human nature really, but in politics, the left wing and the people, the extreme right wing fanatics and wannabe dictators on both sides, far left and far right, are going to, if they can't baffle you with BS, then they're gonna dazzle you with footwork, is the way to say it.
Yeah.
So, if they don't have facts to back up their case, and this is where you have to respect some people that we've mentioned in the past that are on AOC, because they admit it, they didn't have the facts. Okay? The extremists, though, on the other hand, they're not gonna admit they don't have the facts. They're gonna make up BS. They're gonna blame, they're gonna say, oh, Jim must be a womanizer. He goes out and gets drunk every Saturday night and sleeps around on his wife. They'll throw that out there. They actually tried to do that. As we told you before, that a certain prominent political figure here in Lafayette tried to do that with somebody running for state representative a few years ago, a friend of ours, and he was sitting, well, not right here, at the other place, sitting right next to me, telling you the story about that. Tried to get him, when he was running for Congress, tried to get him to lie about one of the other candidates, the one that was closest to beating the second place in the polls against their fair-haired boy, our current incumbent. It wasn't him. It was not Boustany that did this. It was one of the Republican state poobahs that did this. Tried to get him to lie about this guy.
Let me read this before I go.
Jim's not gonna stay around, so he's got some stuff he needs to read to you. And,
This is out of
I approve of this message.
a book called Sovereign Duty. It's about, by Chris Ann Hall. And it's a thing called Liberty's Whisper. It started as a whisper like a soft and subtle breeze, a rustling of some branches, the fluttering of leaves. Many barely noticed, swiftly went on about their day, tending to their business, hustling on their way. And when the remnant heard the distant words, they felt a warm wind blow. They paused and stopped and looked around, for far too few would know. The message, piercing and bittersweet, lingered heavy in the air. But the whisper only calls on those who really care to hear. The whisper was a warning, pleading with all of men. Liberty is your gift from God, and tyranny's at hand. Then the whisper traveled like a rushing wind, growing stronger every day, until many had heard the whisper and what it had to say. It called on man to take a stand, whatever be their fate. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. We will not live as slaves. The subtle breeze, the warm wind blow, the rushing new lay wind. It is a force that stays the course if we but trust in him. Liberty can't end here. It can't end now, though the final hour is near. We have the chance, the circumstance to make our voices clear. We reject the revolution. We don't want violent change. We only want our Constitution, though we will not bow in chains. Judy Thacker. And then I want to read just a thing that's titled State Sovereignty. This is kind of like, listen up. One of the greatest attacks on our republic has been the distortion of the very nature and framework of our governmental structure. Go figure. Namely, the incorrect notion that the federal government is the supreme boss over the states. Let me restate that. Namely, the incorrect notion that the federal government is the supreme boss over the states. In truth, it was not the central government, but the states who were intended to retain the most power in our republic. The states reclaiming their power and putting the federal government back in its limited and defined box will be essential to restoring the proper balance of government. The largest impediment to this key check on federal power, and get ready, is the level of ignorance and miseducation among the citizenry. Several fundamental truths are grossly distorted in the minds of modern Americans. First, citizens do not understand the nature of the states and their relationship to the federal government. Secondly, we do not understand the nature of our Constitution and its relationship to the federal government. In order to get a good grasp on these issues, we must get back to some basics.
And Thomas Park, Tuesday night at 6 p.m.
Amen.
That meeting will help you to get started with such. If you have not been watching this program very long, it will help bring you up to, shall we say, up to speed on a lot that we've covered over the years. But this is vitally needed in this area. It's vitally needed all over the country, is what Ray is doing Tuesday night at Thomas Park at 6 p.m.
I've actually gotten a couple of calls, people wanting to know if I know people that can go teach the Constitution.
Well, there's that thing I sent out on...
Is there a guy in Denham Springs or somewhere?
Yeah, and I sent that to Ray, and he was gonna get in touch with that guy. He might talk about him Tuesday night. I'd have to
I
look
talked
it
to
up.
that guy tonight,
Oh, okay.
to the guy from Baton Rouge. And I can't make that.
Yeah, that's
September
that
17th.
other, yeah, that's September, that's Wednesday.
That's the
Anything
day.
on Wednesday, that's when we're gonna have,
Anything on Wednesdays is a
Yeah.
done deal now.
yep. And that's when we're gonna have
But
Renee.
I felt that, I showed that to Tom before the show, and that needs to be read over and over. I mean, people really they don't understand the states. When I heard Chris Ann give her 2-hour lecture on states, what states meant and what state sovereignty is, we shouldn't even have to have this meeting on Friday.
No.
We shouldn't, but unfortunately,
Well, the mechanics are there. It's in
It's
the
all in
Bill of
place.
Rights. The 9th and 10th articles of the Bill of Rights are very plain, okay? Anything that's not reserved to the federal government, the states have it. Anything that's not specifically reserved. And of course, now they have usurped so much power.
Oh,
Like we've said before, we said it last week, there's no education department provided, no energy department. There's all of these agencies and bureaucracies that should not exist. They're unconstitutional, folks. And then even within the framework of what is constitutional, Congress does not follow some basic rules. And we've covered those over the years as they've come up in the political discourse. But something as basic as keeping track of the money that they spend. I watched a video of the Federal Reserve.
Oh.
The Federal Reserve's auditor, their whatever they call this gal, testifying before Congress. Federal Reserve lost $6 trillion. Now, they're not federal, okay? They're not a U.S. government agency, but they are chartered by Congress. So, what's wrong with this picture? The federal government routinely loses large amounts of money.
and
Not
gold.
quite that much all the time, but,
And gold.
and gold, yeah. Okay, when we come back, we got more stuff for you.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna call it a night
All right, it's tonight. It's tonight.
tonight.
Thank you. See you tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night,
Good news.
eventually. Huh?
There's a federal